Dear students and history buffs, welcome to our exploration of the 17th century, a century that left an indelible mark on European and world history. Known in Italian simply as Il Seicento, this period spans the end of the Renaissance and the dawn of the Enlightenment. It was a time of profound and often turbulent transformation. This century was marked by widespread crises that affected every aspect of society, from demographics to economics, from politics to religion. Simultaneously, we witnessed the unstoppable rise of absolutist regimes in many of Europe's major nations. The 17th century was a crossroads of epochal events that shaped the continent's future. Among the key events that defined the century, the devastating Thirty Years' War undoubtedly stands out, a conflict that reshaped the political and religious map of Europe. At the same time, powerful monarchs emerged, figures like Louis XIV of France, who embodied the concept of absolute power. Counterpointing this trend, England experienced an exceptional transformation, culminating in the birth of parliamentary monarchy. The Thirty Years' War, fought between 1618 and 1648, was a brutal and catastrophic conflict that engulfed much of Europe. Initially, it was a religious struggle, a fierce dispute between Catholic and Protestant powers. However, it soon transformed into a much broader geopolitical conflict. Dynastic disputes, control of strategic territories, and political supremacy intertwined with religious tensions. This conflict drew the major European powers into action, escalating into a full blown continental war for hegemony. No nation could claim to be immune from its devastating consequences. The consequences of the war were immense and tragic. Much of Central Europe was devastated by battles, sieges, and looting, with cities and countryside destroyed. This was compounded by widespread famine, caused by the destruction of crops and the disruption of trade. The result was a significant decline in Europe's population, with estimates putting the death toll at millions, both from direct conflict and from epidemics and starvation. The Peace of Westphalia, signed in 1648, finally ended the Thirty Years' War, marking a crucial turning point in European history. This treaty profoundly redefined the political map of Europe, establishing a new balance of power. One of its most significant consequences was the definitive weakening of the Holy Roman Empire, whose political role and authority was significantly diminished. The Peace of Westphalia is considered the founding moment of the modern system of nation states, based on the principle of territorial sovereignty. It recognized the sovereignty of individual states, putting an end to the idea of a universal empire and affirming the autonomy of each political entity. Furthermore, the treaty established principles of religious tolerance, albeit still limited. This meant that rulers could choose their state's religion, but a certain freedom of worship was guaranteed for minorities. After the profound crises and devastating conflicts of the 17th century, the need arose to consolidate central power and ensure internal stability. It was in this context that absolutism emerged as the dominant political system in many European countries. Absolutism is a system in which monarchical authority is supreme and unlimited, concentrated in the hands of the sovereign. He places himself above the law, holding legislative, executive, and judicial power. The most accomplished model and quintessential example of this form of government is represented by Louis XIV of France, the famous Sun King. Louis XIV embodied the ideals of absolute government like no other ruler. His famous phrase, "I am the state," perfectly sums up his conception of power. He centralized power extensively, progressively stripping away local and noble autonomy. Louis XV exercised iron and direct control over the nobility, inviting or sometimes forcing them to reside at his court. He controlled the army, transforming it into a permanent force loyal to the crown and the economy, through mercantilist policies aimed at strengthening national wealth. The construction of the Palace of Versailles was a tangible symbol of this power. Beyond architectural magnificence, Versailles also served as an instrument of aristocratic control, keeping the nobility under constant supervision and occupied with court rituals. The hallmarks of Louis XIV's reign were evident in every area. It was distinguished by a strong and efficient centralized government capable of imposing the sovereign's will throughout France. Under his reign, France experienced an extraordinary flourishing of the arts and sciences, supported and promoted directly by the crown. The Academy of Sciences, the French Academy, and the Royal Academies of Painting, Sculpture, and Architecture are examples of this patronage. However, Louis XIV's reign was also characterized by ambitious foreign policies aimed at expanding French influence and consolidating its dominant position in Europe. This led France into numerous conflicts, often costly in terms of resources and human lives. Despite this, the French absolutist model became a point of reference for many other European monarchies. As the European continent veered toward monarchical absolutism, England presented a profoundly contrasting and unique narrative. Here, the sovereign's authority was repeatedly challenged, paving the way for a different model of governance. A series of revolutions marked England's path, distancing it from the prevailing absolutist trend. The turning point was the English Civil War, fought between 1642 and 1651. This conflict pitted Parliament, which claimed greater powers and prerogatives, against King Charles I, who firmly believed in his divine right to rule without limits. The war was bloody and ideologically complex. At the end of the conflict, the parliamentarian army led by Oliver Cromwell prevailed. This victory led to the execution of King Charles I, an unprecedented event in European history, marking the end of the idea of sacred immunity for the sovereign. Following the king's execution, England established a republic known as the Commonwealth. This phase, though short lived, represented a radical and innovative experience for the time. After the restoration of the monarchy with Charles II, Charles III's successor, tensions between the crown and parliament resurfaced. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 was a pivotal event which occurred without bloodshed. This revolution led to the deposition of James II, Charles II's brother and successor, due to his absolutist and pro-Catholic tendencies. Parliament installed William of Orange and his wife Mary II, but not before they accepted the Bill of Rights in 1689. This landmark document established a constitutional monarchy, significantly limiting the sovereign's powers and asserting the supremacy of Parliament. It marked a significant shift in power from the monarch to the legislature. The Bill of Rights established fundamental rights and liberties for subjects, laying the foundation for modern constitutionalism. The legacy of the English revolutions was immense and global in scope. They offered a concrete and functional alternative to the absolutist trend that dominated continental Europe. By demonstrating that the sovereign's power could be limited by law and parliament, these revolutions paved the way for a more democratic and representative form of government. The English experience inspired future political thinkers and revolutionary movements, laying the foundation for the development of constitutionalism and modern democracy. In short, the 17th century is a pivotal period in European history, an era of profound change and contradictions. The 30 Years' War, with its devastating impact, redefined the continent's political landscape. With the Peace of Westphalia, the modern system of nation-states was born, based on the principle of territorial sovereignty. Absolutism, with Louis XIV as its greatest exponent, became the dominant political model across much of Europe. This system centralized power in the hands of the sovereign, limiting autonomy and promoting the idea of unlimited monarchical power. However, the English revolutions provided a crucial counterpoint to this trend. They demonstrated the possibility of limiting monarchical power. They laid the foundation for modern parliamentary democracy, influencing political thought and institutional development for centuries to come.